Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Honor to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened One. My utmost respect to the perfectly enlightened Samma Sambuddha, the noble doctrine of the Buddha, and the noble Mahasangha, the disciples of the Buddha. Hello everyone, dear Dhamma friends. Welcome to our weekly Dhamma discussion series with Venerable Maggavihari. This is week number 3. Venerable Maggavihari, the Vice President of the International Institute of Theravada, will deliver another Dhamma talk today on another important topic. And under this weekly Dhamma talk series, we will cover up some really important topics on Theravada Buddhism to help benefit our community around the world. I certainly believe that this collaborated effort by Dhamma USA and IIT is going to open up more horizon of Dhamma knowledge among our community. We are so delighted to have Venerable Maggavihari's contribution for this series, as I'm confident that he is one of the most capable young Sri Lankan monks who has been amply trained with both Dhamma knowledge and practice. Dear Dhamma friends, please mark your calendar every Sunday at 7:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and 8 p.m. Sri Lanka and India time to get more benefited. Kindly check with Dhamma USA and IIT YouTube channels and Facebook pages for more updated. I'm pretty sure you will enjoy today's topic, and I would like to also invite you to post your questions in the comment sections of our YouTube channels so that we can answer them later on at the end of the talk. Without further ado, let me invite Venerable Maggavihari to start his Dhamma sharing. Please pay your attention seriously to achieve maximum benefit from today's Dhamma sharing. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
My great respect to Bhante Sumita and all the Mahasangha who is attending this talk. Today I'm delivering the talk from Colombo, not from IIT. So that's why you see a different setup. It's a privilege for myself and also to the IIT to join hands with Dhamma USA and deliver and share the knowledge that we have with the audience all around the world. If I directly plunge into the topic, today I'm happy to discuss about the real refuge that we are seeking in this doctrine, under this doctrine. In the previous 2 lectures, we discussed about the Eightfold Noble Path, which is the practice the one has to follow in order to attain the full liberation. And the previous talk, it means the second talk, we talked about the causes of accomplishment, Iddhipada. First talk was about Maggangas. So today I would like to emphasize on another aspect of this practice, because in my opinion, this is an aspect that we pay less attention in our path, because we emphasize more upon Sila samadhi, and panya, we give up, or we just sometimes we accidentally or unintentionally ignore and it doesn't pay much emphasis upon the fact called chetana, which can also be explained as the kamma. When Visuddhi Magga was first written, Venerable Buddha Gosa explained that the path to liberation can be explained in various ways. It is threefold as Sila Samadhi Panya. Sometimes it can be explained as, for instance, sevenfold, fivefold, based on the Bojjhangas and so forth. Another way is it is being explained as fourfold, that is Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and Karma. Karma means the intention, the action that we do. This action itself is also a refuge in one sense. So rather than focusing on this as a path towards the liberation, I would like to direct your attention towards the refuge that we go into or go under or take up. Normally we talk about three refuges, the triple gem, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Normally we use it in the singular term, triple gem. The Buddha is the fully enlightened person who first discovered the truth and explained it in terms that are in which we could understand. The Dhamma is the attainments that he had. In short, we shall explain them in detail. And then the Sangha are the disciples who followed this path and achieved this liberation according to under the Buddha's instructions. So these are the three refuges that we normally undergo by the Pali terms, say uttering the Pali terms, Buddhan Saranam Gacchami, Dhamman Saranam Gacchami, and Sanghan Saranam Gacchami. But when we extensively study the doctrine with much insight, we get to know about another refuge, which is called the kamma, or in some words, karma, our own action, our own behavior. Because the ones who have studied the Dhamma to a certain extent, we know that Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha are the refuge of the disciples, of the Buddhists. At the same time, there are discourses that the Buddha has mentioned that you are your own refuge. Attahi attano nato. It's a very famous utterance in the Buddha's discourse. So how do we collaborate these two, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as the refuge, and also ourselves as our own refuge? So we have to have a clear understanding about these two and how to match them, because both were uttered by the Buddha himself. Because in Dhammapada, or in the same book Dhammapada, Buddha has mentioned ones who undergo the refuge of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, consider them as their refuge, would eventually get liberated from the samsara. In the same Dhammapada, he has mentioned Attahi attano nato kohi nato parosya. You are your own refuge, and who else can be? How could someone else be your refuge? Seems like they are contradicting, but when we analyze them deeply, we get to know that we find out that all four are applicable in our lives, and we have to take different approaches in order to understand these four types of refuge. So I would like to term the discourse, our Dhamma talk, as the fourfold refuge, or four types of refuge. So we shall go into understand why they are refuge and how do they matter to us. In the end, we will find out that this approach would eventually leads to our path to the liberation. So at the end of the talk, I'll link them, how they are related to our path, especially the fourth refuge. The Pali term for this, Pali term for refuge is sarana. Sarana, S-A-R-A-N-A. N-A, the lingual N. Normally we write N below dot. Sarana means that which destroys the suffering. One explanation. There can be various interpretations for Pali terms. One famous and the most prominent explanation is the things or the persons or whatever that destroys the suffering and gives us the protection is the sarana. So normally sarana is considered as a refuge. It is a protector. From what? From whom do these sarana protects us? It is the suffering. The suffering can be explained as the suffering that we would encounter in this very life due to various reasons. Maybe due to our own bad behavior, our own negligence, or sometimes due to past karmas that we have done in samsara, and also the suffering that is about to come unless we destroy the causes of suffering. For instance, if you are born again, we would eventually face death, decaying, aging, sickness, separation from the beloved ones. So ample of suffering, immeasurable amount of suffering is waiting for us. So it means we are supposed to encounter such great suffering if we remain in this samsara. The refuge that we are discussing, the saranas, would destroy this suffering and liberate us from them. They are like a protection. So we can also eventually say protectors. So how these four refuges make us liberated from the suffering? First and foremost among them is the Buddha. And sometimes we may call it Buddha in different pronunciation. The fully enlightened being. Because the beings are mainly not aware that we are trapped in such a samsara filled with suffering, in a samsara in which, as long as you stay, it's inevitable to avoid the suffering. So then the nature of this samsara, samsara means the continuation of nama and rupa, which are non-self, which are not a self, and which does not belong to any self, and which are impermanent and beget suffering. So knowing the nature of the samsara, knowing the real existence of samsara is a daunting task. And in the previous discourse, we talked about it is one of the accomplishments, knowing the true natures of the realities. Abhinyayesu dhammesu abhinya siddhi. Accomplishment that needs to be achieved with a lot of effort. For that, we need the iddipadas, the causes of accomplishment. In order to accomplish this, in order to get to know about the true nature of suffering, savakas, the ordinary beings like us, need the guidance, need some teaching. For that, at least one person has to understand it by himself, because there should be a beginning of this understanding. So time to time, there appears some great humans who understand these true natures by themselves. Out of them, some are unable or incapable, don't have the capacity to put their understanding into words and express them to the listeners. So we call them the Pacheka Buddhas or silent Buddhas, the ones who get enlightened by themselves but are unable to enlighten others. Then among the ones who get liberated by themselves, there are a special type of beings whom we call Samma Sambuddhas, who are capable of expressing their understanding and path to the liberation. If this person would not or does not understand that reality, the ordinary humans, ordinary beings would not have a chance to get to know about this truth. Therefore, a Buddha, a Samma Sambuddha, is a great refuge, because all the practice, the dispensation, our efforts are based on his investigation. If he had he not known this truth, there would be no such a Dhamma talk happening today. There would be no such a sasana in which the monks could practice. And we would not be aiming towards a permanent liberation, getting out of this samsara, and will not be practicing a precise doctrine. Therefore, maybe we'll be following some other doctrines which would eventually lead to the lengthening of samsara rather than terminating this, or we can call ending this agony. Therefore, the Buddha is a great refuge. Why is that? He's the one who found this truth and expressed it into words. Just by finding the truth, one doesn't become a refuge to others. The best example is the Pacceka Buddhas. They understand the truth by themselves, but they never become a refuge to others in the level, in the scale of a Sammasambuddha. The reason is he's unable to make them understand or make them to follow the path they did towards the liberation. So Buddha is a great refuge. Why is that? He uncovered and discovered this truth, which was covered by, we would say, which was covered by the time or due to various reasons. He uncovered this and he explained it to us. And he was able to put it into words in a way that we could understand. And he's the ultimate guider. He's the ultimate instructor. He's the ultimate teacher. They are only based on his teachings we are capable of getting rid of this suffering. Therefore, inevitably, he becomes the foremost refuge. Now, the next refuge is, now he was the founder of the truth, but even for him to find the truth, there has to be some sort of a truth. So, realities are there that really exist, but not all realities would become a refuge, because when you talk, now this is sort of a philosophical point. Now, realities do exist, but what matters is the realities which makes us liberated from the suffering. Just being a reality doesn't make it to be a refuge. Among the realities in the existence, the Buddha found out that there are few would liberate, a few realities that has the capacity to end our suffering and to make us liberated. So these were the final attainments and the unconditioned nirvana. If there is no nirvana, there is no way out. And if there was no path to attain this nirvana, still we'll not be able to get into it. Therefore, the nirvana and the path are great refuges for beings, because they do really exist and they makes us liberated. And also the fruition which tranquilize, or we can say which gives us lots of bliss after attaining, and also calm down our mind stream after the defilements are eradicated. We call it the fruition. The Magga Phala. Path is the Magga, Phala is the fruition, Nirvana is the state we attain. But these higher states cannot be attained without a mundane practice. The mundane practice means the day-to-day practice that we do as practitioners who are seeking for a liberation. Normally we term it as Sila, Samadhi and Panya. That practice is also a refuge to us, because if not, without the help of this practice, we will not be able to attain the supreme states such as Magga Phala and Nirvana. And then the Buddha's instructions, the Dharma, the teachings are also of great refuge, because without the teachings, the person himself is a refuge, because if without him, none of this would be possible, and we would not even have even an idea about this. So the person himself is a refuge, and his teachings are also a refuge. His teachings are leading us into a practice, and that practice leads us to attainment. Therefore, his teachings, the practice that we do, that we develop in ourselves, and the attainments we attain are also great refuge. Because think if you make it a thought experiment, if there is no such a, think if the existence was made means if it was not made by someone according to Buddhist teachings, if existence happens to be in a way that there is no such a restrainment, if there is no such a sila, if there is no such a samadhi, if there was no such a state called nirvana, the agony would never end. It means it was possible that if such states were not there, we would always be trapped in this samsara and there was no way out. For example, when I was having a discussion at my lay life with one of my friends, a question that he asked me is, do you think that you can get out of this samsara? Is it possible? It's a very good question in the end. So that was a thought the Bodhisattva had in the life of Sumedha. He got convinced by himself, by his own thinking, there should be some sort of an end to this agony, to this suffering. Like there's always light against darkness, there is healthiness against sickness, there is coldness against heat. So there should be a vibhava against bhava. There should be a non-existence opposing to the existence. If there was no such a state called nirvana, if there's no such a state called magga and phala, we would be always trapped in this. So therefore, such states, realities, the path, the unconditioned state is a great refuge. Because they are existing, we are capable of getting out of this. So in this case, someone who is quite sharp would have a question, because I'm giving the Dhamma talk in a mixture. Like I'm telling, we get liberated due to these ultimate realities. So someone can get confused. Do I mean that there is a self here? No, I'm just when I say we, I'm conventionally referring to the nama and rupas for the easiness to convey the idea. So conventionally, we get liberated with the help of magga and phala. But in the ultimate sense, there is no person who gets liberated, because only nama and rupa happens not to exist in the ultimate sense. But so please consider this. Otherwise, it is not easy to convey the idea. So conventionally, we can say we get liberated due to this. So their existence is a great refuge. Now, their refuge, the nature of their refuge can be understood if there is no nirvana, if there is no such a thing called path that can eradicate the suffering, that can eradicate the defilements, then we would not have any chance getting out of this samsara. Now think about such a scenario. I just want to emphasize why Dhamma, why nirvana, path and fruition are a refuge to us. Now think, if there was no such ultimate supreme states like magga, phala, nibbana, or path, fruition and liberation, and someone get enlightened and says there is no way out. If someone finds out that there is no way out and he uttered to the world, even that person would never become a refuge to us. Because if there is no way out, if there is no way to end the suffering of samsara, just mentioning that there is no way out is not going to do any good for us. Therefore, Buddha became a refuge to us. It's because the Dhamma is existing. Dhamma, when I say Dhamma, I'm referring to Nibbana, Nirvana, Magga, Phala, our own practice, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and the doctrine. So among them, the foremost is Magga, Phala and Nirvana. If there were no such states, if there is no such a state called Nirvana, if the possibility of a Magga, a rising of a Magga, if a possibility of a rising of a Phala was not there, the one who get enlightened would never become a refuge to us. Therefore, why the Buddha is a refuge is because these states are existing. Nirvana is existing forever. Magga and Phala are possible to arise if you practice. The possibility is there. Therefore, these states are a great refuge to us. Dhamma. These states cannot be attained without a practice, or our own practice is also a refuge to us, and that practice is followed under the instructions of the Buddha. So his teachings are also a refuge. Teaching doesn't represent the person. Person is the Buddha. Due to his own effort, due to his endurance, due to his great sacrifices, he was able to understand this too. So he himself as a person becomes a refuge, because without such endeavor, this doctrine would never, we'd never be able to listen to this doctrine. So as a person, he becomes a refuge, and the Dhamma itself is a refuge. Then we come into the refuge called Sangha, the disciples. According to the Theravadians, what is the real Sangha? That it is open to debate actually. One people may have different opinions on this, but if I stick to the commentaries, what the commentary says, Sangha are the enlightened beings who have gone forth from homelessness, from household life to homelessness. It means the ones who have ordained, ones who have gone forth, the monks, nuns, who has renounced the household life. But not everyone who has renounced the household life, ones who have attained the supreme, the path and fruition and become noble beings. This is the Theravadian explanation on this. One can debate on this due to referring to various sutras and so forth. So a lay person who has attained the Maggaphala would not be counted as the Sangha in that sense, Sangha Ratana, the refuge. And also the monks who have not attained are not taken as Sangha in the ultimate sense. In one way, in a different way, we may include, according to the commentaries, we may include the monks who are following the Upasampada and following the Silas, being recluses, are also the Putujana monks, the worldly monks, may be also included into the Sangha group in one way or another. But in the ultimate sense, the noble disciples of the Buddha, monks and nuns, are the Sangha. So it's something open to debate. One people can have different opinions on this. So I would like to emphasize why this Sangha, the disciples, are a refuge. Something that we also need to we need to think, because it's always now the ones who have studied the Dhamma, because Buddha has uttered the teachings and his disciples have elaborated. So when you study the Dhamma, because the Buddha is not existing at the moment as a human being, and we know that there are some, in some places, to be true, the level of the monks have declined compared to the past. That is obvious. So people tend to rely only on Dhamma and try to practice. That is something very good, because you have to rely on Dhamma. But why the Sangha is still considered as a refuge? That is something that we also need to understand. Few reasons are there. Few reasons. One is, this Dhamma was preserved to us by the Sangha. Sangha means monks and nuns who has gone forth and attained, or at least ones who are trying to attain. Because if you think, if the Sangha didn't exist, the monks and nuns were not there, there was no chance at all, I would say, no chance at all, this doctrine would have survived this long. There's no way at all. Because if you compare to the present level of the monk society, sometimes you may not agree fully on this, but if you think, monks and nuns have fully dedicated themselves to this practice and to preserve the doctrine. And that's how, because of them, the doctrine was preserved for generations, enduring all the hardship, even under all the hardship. It was preserved in Sri Lanka, in Burma, in Thailand, in various ways. So because they were a group that was fully dedicated to preserve this Dhamma, that's why it could sustain for such a long period. It is not just one book. There are lots of teaching, lots of explanations. So monks and nuns has already become a refuge to us, because if not for them, we would never have had Dhamma in this era, for sure, because lay people cannot dedicate such time to preserve this doctrine. That's obvious. Then the next reason is Sangha are the mediators of the Buddhist teachings. Because Buddha cannot be present even during while the Buddha was alive. He couldn't be present at all the places all the time. He's not omnipresent. So he had his limitations, but his teachings were spread all around the world, country, by his disciples. The best example is after the first Vasa. Buddha sent monks to various directions and asked them not to walk upon the same path, and to ask them to spread the Dhamma as much as possible. So when at the absence of the Buddha, disciples, the Sangha, are the ones who spread this Dhamma or take this message to the world. Therefore, they have become a great refuge to the followers of the teachings. And then another very important aspect of their refuge, being their refuge, is they are the reason for us to gain confidence on the path. There was one Brahmin, if my memory was correct, he was Bharadwaja, or the sutras are mentioned in the Majjhima Nikaya. I beg your pardon for my forgetfulness on his name. He maybe during the talk I may recall his name. So this Brahmin, who was a follower of the eternal view, who had a belief that there is a soul that transmigrates from life to life, had some discussions with the Buddha. Buddha took some time, had to deliver a few discourses in order to remove his wrong view, because eternal view is quite difficult to be removed than the annihilation view of annihilation. So after some time, he got convinced about the Buddha's teachings. And one day, he thought, yes, I would prefer to practice under recluse Gautama, but he had a doubt. What he thought was, it's very clear that the Buddha, this Venerable Gautama, has surely attained what he's preaching. He is a liberated person, there's no doubt in it. And even just by looking at him, we get confident that he is a special person. So what if it is that this truth is so profound to understand, and only such a person like recluse Gautama is capable of understanding this truth? And if ordinary beings like us cannot do it, what if it is so? That was his doubt. Because we can see Venerable Gautama, Siddhartha was a special person. So it's not a surprise that he had attained. And we can easily see, is it possible that people like us can do it? That was his doubt. And it's also an honest doubt that any of us would get. Think about our own lives. So then he came to the Buddha and asked the question, okay, it's clear about your attainment. I have no doubt about that. How about your disciples? Are there monks who have attained and got liberated? Buddha said, yeah, not one or two. There are plenty of monks. How about nuns? Yes, there are a lot. How about lay disciples who are observing 10 precepts? Are there disciples who had attained at least a lower stage like Anagami? Yes, a lot. Males, females. And how about the ones who still enjoy the sensual pleasures and still got liberated to a certain degree, like Sotapannas and so on? Yes, there are a lot. Not one or two. Thousands are there. Then he got convinced, okay, huge masses of people have followed his path and got liberated. Then why can't I do it? So he ordained, and in the end he became an arahant. The noble disciples of the Buddha, this may also include the lay people in this regard, I think now especially the monks, when we get to know the attainments of Sariputta, Moggallana, special disciples, some being hunters, getting ordained and getting liberated, some thieves giving up their livelihood and becoming monks and becoming arahants, knowing these all stories, then we get the confidence, okay, if they could do it, why can't we? So Sangha is a reason for us to get the confidence on this path. It's a huge reason. If it was only Buddha, we would always have the doubt, is it possible for us to do it? But seeing all the stories that thousands of monks and nuns have attained and got released from this samsara, we eventually get the feeling naturally, okay, if they could, why can't we? Why can't I? Therefore, Sangha is a great refuge in arousing or bringing up the confidence in us to walk upon this path. Therefore, please keep in mind, Sangha became a refuge because they protected this Dhamma till now. And they are the mediators and they represent the Buddha by preaching the Dhamma when the Buddha is not present, even after the Buddha's demise. And then they are the reason, one of the main reasons for us to get the confidence to walk upon this path. Then these are the three refuges. Then the fourth refuge is your own action. Now we put it into a simile. Think about a person who got sick and who is admitted to a hospital and who is waiting, who is finding to get cured from his disease. There should be a good doctor who would prescribe the medicine according to his disease. He has a vast knowledge. He knows about various diseases and various medicines. So he would prescribe, okay, to your disease, this and this medicine suits. Just having the doctor is not enough. There should be medicine. For example, at the moment in Sri Lanka, we are facing a lack of medicines. Crisis is there. So even there are good doctors, if there's no medicine, we cannot get cured from diseases. So medicine has to be present, and good quality medicine has to be there. If the sickness is quite serious and we need to get treated after being admitted into a hospital, we cannot cure our diseases by ourselves. We need the support of nurses, attendants. They would check upon us. Did you take the medicine? And they would give us the medicine at suitable time. They would instruct us, because it's very easily we could forget the instructions of the doctor. So we need the support of nurses and attendants who are all watchful on us and who always compassionately guide us what to do and what not to do in order to get cured. Finally, even there was a good doctor, medicine is present, if the attendants and nurses are supporting us, they would not be with us. There is a time, most of the time we are with ourselves in a hospital. It's our duty to behave properly. It's our duty to take the medicine at suitable time. It's our duty to avoid the postures, avoid the food that are not supportive to our curing. The greatest responsibility relies upon us. Even we are in the best hospital, under the care of best medical staff, with the high quality medicine, if we don't use them properly, we don't maintain healthy habits, we'll not be able to get cured from this sickness. So we get to know that we ourselves also has a responsibility. So we'll now compare this simile. The great doctor is the great Buddha, who understood the suffering of this world. First of all, the patient is the sentient being who is afflicted by the suffering of samsara, aging, dying, being reborn again and again, dying, aging, and so forth. He is stuck in this samsara. The sentient being. He comes to the sasana. He wants to get cured from the sickness of samsara. So the doctor is the Buddha, who had understood, who has a deep insight about this sickness, who knows the various medicines that suits this person. And then the medicine is still present, the nirvana is there. Magga, the possibility of arising Magga Pala is still there. It's possible to walk upon this path, the eightfold path is present. So Dhamma, the medicine, Dhamma is like the medicine. And we need the support of nurses, attendants, the Sangha. Time to time would encourage us, would guide us what to do and what not to do. The support of the monks and nuns who have walked upon this path, maybe who has attained or who is walking ahead of us, who has some experience, some knowledge, their support is necessary. But in the end, even the Buddha's teachings are there, perfect teachings are there, nirvana is present, good erudite scholars, monks, disciplined monks are teaching. If we do not follow by ourselves the path, we'll not be able to get out of this samsara. It's like if we do not use the medicine properly, if we do not behave properly, we'll not be able to cure the sickness. So likewise, if we do not follow the instructions of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, we'll not be able to get out of the samsara. So what does it mean? Our own responsibility relies upon our action, our bodily, verbal, and mental actions. So we have to restrain from immoral deeds, bodily and verbally. We have to maintain mindfulness all the time. We have to cultivate good qualities. Sila, Samadhi, Panya. In order to do that, we have to have the intention of doing it. That's the number one. Intention is present, has to be there. Intention means chetana, the wanting to do. It's quite similar to desire, the chanda. Chanda is a desire to do a certain action. Chetana is the wanting, the force that executes this action. It's utterly necessary. So it's like, now sometimes if we complain that we are not practicing properly, that is our own decision. It's our own intention that we don't practice, because we prioritize some other thing over the practice. So therefore, there are no excuses on this. If you have the intention, you would surely do that. So then the question comes, how to strengthen this intention? How do we get this intention? Yeah, there are some factors that we need to associate in order to arise this intention. But in the end, the responsibility is vested upon you. So that's why Buddha mentioned, Attahi Attanono Ato. In the end, the fourth refuge is you yourself. Even the Buddha is preaching Dhamma, even the Sangha is preaching quality teachings. Even Dhamma is present. We don't have the intention to get out of this samsara. We don't have that urge to get out of this samsara. We don't have that wanting, willingness to get out of this samsara. We would never get out of this samsara. So the wholesome intention, the intention to attain, intention to end this suffering is also a vital, imperative factor in this path. Only we have intention, we would develop sila. Only when we have intention, we would develop samadhi. Only when we have intention, we would go into vipassana. Only when we have intention, we would restrain ourselves and focus ourselves on the path. So that's why in the Dasadhamma Sutta, Buddha mentions karma is a refuge. So here, now I'm taking the discourse towards a different angle. Intention is chetana, chetana is the karma, karma is the action. So when Buddha said karma is a refuge, he's not only referring to the past karmas that we have done in samsara. Yes, if you have done good karmas in samsara, surely you'll be enjoying all the comforts and all these blisses in this life. And also if you do good karmas in the future lives, there'll be lots of things that would make us happy. But at the same time, our own action is our refuge. It's simple as that. If you want to get a good job, you just cannot rely on the past karma. You have to work for that. We have to study hard and pass the examinations. Only then we'll be able to reach that level. If some monk wants to attain, he has to practice for this. He'll not just be taken by his past karma toward the liberation. A best example is Venerable Sudinna. According to the tradition, he had the capacity of becoming an arahant, but he ended up having sex with his wife, because ex-wife, because the rule was not promulgated at that time. So he didn't become a parajika. He didn't become defeated. He didn't become a parajika monk, technically, because the rule was not laid down. Because of his act, the rule was laid down. But still, the story says he was unable to get rid of the doubt, the remorse, because he thought that he made a huge stain on this sasana by doing such an act. So it says that he ended up died being a Putujana monk. But he had the capacity to become an arahant. As due to his own negligence, not practicing well, unable to get rid of the remorse, he ended up died being an ordinary person who had the capacity to become. So therefore, if we don't practice, if we don't have the intention, we'll not be able to reach that final goal. That's why Buddha mentioned, don't remorse at the end. Start now. Jayata bhikkhave ma phamadattha. Do not postpone your practice to future. Try it now. Start it now. Because when we get old, when you're not capable, surely we'll not be able to practice with such energy. So it doesn't mean not to discourage the ones who are old to practice, even at the deathbed, once people have attained the final liberation. So at any time you can do it, but it's when we are young, that's the best time. So intention is there. It should be there. And this intention, karma is the action. Chetana is foremost in this. What does it mean? If we are meditating, that is a sort of an action we are doing. If you observe sila, if you listen to Dhamma, if you study the Dhamma, if you memorize Dhamma and think and deeply understand this Dhamma and apply it into our life, these are all actions that we are doing, mental, physical, and verbal actions. Only when we apply this, only when we exert this, execute these acts, wholesome acts, we'll be able to progress further. Therefore, though we explain the path is threefold as Sila Samadhi Panya, the underlying force for this entire path is the Chetana, intention. And it is the greatest refuge, because Sila Samadhi Panya falls into Dhamma. In order to attain this Dhamma, we have to have the intention. In order to follow the Buddha, we have to have intention. In order to follow the instructions of Dhamma, we have to have that intention. So that's why Buddha emphasized, even the Buddha Dhamma Sangha is present in the world, you are your own refuge. What does it mean? You have to put yourself into this path. You have to make yourself work on this. So in the ultimate sense, this action, our own action, becomes one of the greatest refuges. Because even though we have the action, we have the intention, if the Buddha didn't appear, we'll not be able to get liberated. If there's no Dhamma, we'll not be able to get liberated. Without the Sangha, it will be so hard to get liberated. Therefore, all the 4 refuges are equally important. But try to understand why it's not contradicting. Because in one place, Buddha mentions Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha are the great refuge for us. At the same time, we ourselves are our own refuge. So that is because in order to get benefits out of these 3 refuges, we have to have our own intention, and we have to make ourselves to follow it. So therefore, how does this relate to our path? In order to follow the Eightfold Path, in order to develop four causes of accomplishment, in order to develop the 5 faculties, whatever it is, whatever the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas, factors of enlightenment, they are all vested upon one mental factor, that is our intention. Only when the intention is there, we would follow this path. Then the question comes, how do we have this intention? How do we arouse this intention? How do we intensify this intention? Yes, for that you have to associate the Dhamma, you have to listen to Dhamma more and more, associate the Sangha, try to contemplate about the sufferings of samsara and the benefits of the nirvana. Then this intention would come up much stronger. But in the end, even how much we listen, even how much knowledge we get, sometimes there is sort of a control is there. Therefore, sometimes we may think, oh, we normally just postpone it just because we are not willing to do that. So the responsibility lies upon us. So therefore, in the end, you just cannot put the responsibility on other factors. In the end, responsibility lays upon you. That's why Buddha mentioned you are your own refuge. If you want to get liberated, if we want to get liberated, it's our choice. If we choose to remain in this samsara, that's our choice. Because one of my relatives once said, yes, I just want to be in the samsara. Okay, that's your choice. Even the Buddha would not be able to liberate you, for sure. Because if you choose to be in the samsara, you'll never get liberated from this samsara, that's for sure. Because you don't have the intention to get out of it. So therefore, I just want to emphasize this chetana. I'm not talking about good and bad karma, the definition here. Intention to do the act is quite important, a part that we normally does not emphasize much, but it is considered as one of the refuges in our sasana. So I would conclude my talk. So I was emphasizing on the 4-fold refuge, the Buddha, why he is a refuge, Dhamma, the nirvana and the Maggapala, the unconditioned state, the path and fruition, the mundane practice, and the doctrine, why it is a refuge, why the Sangha is a refuge, and how we become our own refuge. So this would be my talk, and thank you for listening, and lots of thanks to Bhante Sumita for giving me this opportunity. And I hope all of us will be able to work upon this path with great intention and attain the final liberation.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Venerable Maggavihari, for that wonderful topic. Actually, this is a really helpful topic to many. And the refuge of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and oneself. So we would like to invite all of you to post your questions in simple language through Dhamma USA and IIT YouTube channel so that we can answer them. And let me see, we have some questions already. Okay, so this is not really something that is relevant to this topic. Maybe we can start with that. Hari Naidu, Bhanteji, we are existing in our thoughts when we are in deep meditation, the thought process slows down, and thus we come out of the dream of existence at that state of mind. We have to take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha to come out of the dream of existence. Banteji, we are talking refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha out of psychological or mental fear. Okay, I think this is not really a question, but we can figure out what he is talking about. Venerable Maggavihari?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Hari Naidu, right? Yeah. It's also an interesting thing that which you brought out. Thank you for that. Few things to elaborate, because Buddha's teachings has been explained by different disciples in different ways. So Theravada is one of the ways the Buddha's teachings has been elaborated. According to that, the world is not only confined to the thought. There is Nama and Rupa both existing. So while we are in meditation, it's true that our mind is absorbed in certain types of thoughts, but it doesn't mean that the entire world is thought. Because Theravada doctrine is sort of a dualism. So mind and matter both exist, and also the existence of the outside world is not depending on our mind. So therefore, according to Theravada perspective, it's not only thoughts existing, there is something existing apart from the thought. That's how the teachings are explained and preserved in the doctrine. But there are Buddhist teachings that says that only thought is existing. That is, mainly the Yogacharas have explained such a doctrine, which existed in ancient India, and also which is studied in modern Tibet traditions to some extent. Studied. Therefore, when while we are meditating, we are in a sort of deep thought. That it doesn't mean it is not to annihilate the outer existence. Then, according to Theravada doctrine, because the debate is still open, one can have a discussion on whether that claim is true or not, because the Yogacharas have their own explanations on it, the Theravadas have their own standpoint. That is something else. So I'll just focus on Theravada standpoint. So while we are in the meditation, the Rupa is existing, the Nama is also existing, the outside world is existing. So our minds are fixed on a certain object, and we do get similar types of thoughts. Yeah. And then our wandering mind would stop, and we are focused on one same thought. Yeah. So if we are able to get rid of the defilements, that we have to do with our own intention. If we are not putting effort, we will not be able to get rid of these defilements. Eventually, one would also attain the liberation one day. According to the Theravadians, the attainment is not coming out of the dream that we are seeing. It's another explanation that the Buddha's teachings have been explained in a different way, but not in the Theravadian way. In the Theravadian way, this is not a dream, this is a real existence, and the existence is real. But according to Nagarjuna, yes, we can call it a dream. They have their own reasons for that. According to Madhyamikas, everything other than the consciousness is a dream. But for the Theravadians, no, this is not a dream. But there is some point, like seeing the reality, we may consider it differently. A non-self reality is considered as self. Impermanent reality is considered as permanent. A reality that brings suffering is considered as pleasurable. So this is the wrong view according to Theravada. It's not a dream. It's what really exists has been seen or observed or interpreted in a different way. So in the Theravada doctrine, when we get liberated, when we are enlightened, we get rid of this thought pattern, we get rid of this wrong thinking, and we try to see the reality in its actual form. That is the liberation or enlightenment in Theravada tradition. But this is now, according to Nagarjuna, it's a different interpretation. According to Madhyamika, it's a different interpretation. So I'm fixing to the Theravada tradition. Otherwise, whether this is wrong or correct, then it's a different debate. Then, to conclude my question, so then which becomes, is it, Bhantiji, we are taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha out of psychological or mental fear? No, in that sense. Because existence is there and we interpret it wrongly, it's due to his instructions, the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, we are capable of changing our mind pattern, thought pattern. Because if it's just a dream is existing, the Dhamma you are listening is also a dream, part of the dream. If it's just a dream existing, Buddha is also a part of a dream. So Buddha has not existed forever. So Buddha should be a part of your dream if it's just a dream. So called Theravadians do not go into this trap. They consider the outside world do exist despite our observation. For instance, if a leaf is falling in the Amazon forest at the moment without anyone being observed, the leaf is still falling. Regardless we observe it or not. According to this is the Theravada doctrine. Therefore, yeah, if you consider it's just a dream and you are to get out of this dream, these instructions that we follow are also a dream, right? So therefore, in that sense, yes, taking Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as refuge is also part of a dream and is due to physical, psychological, or mental fear. But Theravadians, according to them, the reality does exist. The Buddha has existed. The Dhamma is existing. Sangha is existing, has existed. So we experience the reality, but we interpret it differently. So in order to change this, we have to have a good instructions so we can try to see the reality in its real form. For that, we need the refuge of Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. But it's not enough. We have to put our effort. Only then we'll be able to see the reality in its real form. That's how I would explain this.
Thank you so much, Venerable Maggavihari. I think that is a very important question, and a lot of people today they go for many refuges. Being Buddhist people also, we can see them how they go after so many refuges. When they are in trouble, they go to this and that. So many pujas, so many rituals, so many devas, all these things are there. In Dhajaka Sutta, I think Buddha mentioned when the devas are talking about this refuge, right? So the king of God, they say, okay, if you have any fear, you can think of all the Chatu Maharajika devas, and or else even the god Sakka himself. And then the Buddha said, no, not really. You cannot, because they are not vitaraga. They have not yet, exterminated their own defilements. So if you have fear, think of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. When you think of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, because they have actually that power. Buddha himself has self-enlightened, perfectly enlightened Samma Sambuddha, and then the Mahasangha also beautifully explained in the sutta how important it is to think of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And I think it is a really valid topic today that Venerable Maggavihari is giving us today. And we hope we will have more. Let me see, we have a question again from Anjali. Vandami Bhanteji, I request if you can throw light on how to take refuge in the Triple Gems in the correct, skillful manner. Most of us merely recite Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Okay. I think
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's also quite important to know how to get the refuge. I'll just, if I take some few minutes to elaborate this. Yes, Anjali, thank you for your question, and it's also important to know this clearly. To put it short and sweet, there are no Buddhists by birth. So we become Buddhists by observing the triple gems, according to the commentaries. Now, for example, there is a way that a fetus or a child in the womb can get the protection of triple gem, according to the doctrine, because in some sutras, some devas and yakas have come and said the Buddha that we would prefer to protect your disciples. So therefore, while the child is in the womb, if mother takes the refuge for herself, and secondly take the refuge for the sake of the child, the commentary says there is sort of a protection to the child, but not the he doesn't become a Buddhist by just taking by the mother is taking refuge. Then after someone is born, after some time, when we get to know about the Buddha's teachings, either deeply or shallowly, if we just follow our parents and observe the triple refuge and consider Buddha Dhamma Sangha as my refuge, then from that moment onwards, we become Buddhists, right? So till we observe the triple gems, though conventionally we may call I'm born into a Buddhist and Buddhist by birth, but in the ultimate sense, we become Buddhist by observing triple gems for the first time. Then how to do it properly and skillfully? That is quite important. The attitude that we should have is we should consider that always keep in mind the liberation is quite important. Liberation from suffering. That is mainly the liberation from samsara. Secondarily, liberation from the suffering of day-to-day life or within this life, and suffering that we may encounter in the next lives. But ultimately, we are talking about a liberation of getting rid of samsara. So, in order to attain this liberation, the teacher I would follow, the guidance I would take is only from the Buddha, is mainly from the Buddha. So you are my refuge to get rid of this samsara. And also considering Nibbana, this is the state that I have to attain. Only after attaining this, I would be freed from suffering. Only by following this path, I would be freed from suffering. So considering this Dhamma as the path that we need to follow and the state that we need to attain is taking refuge under Dhamma. Considering Buddha as the ultimate guider under whose instruction we would be able to attain, it's taking refuge under Buddha. Taking refuge under Sangha is considering them as the ones who protected this Dhamma, and also would instruct us on occasions, and also the ones who have followed this path before me. Once I followed this path before me, so following like following whom that we would walk upon this path, considering them as the main three reasons for my liberation, is called taking refuge on the dead. So that is the main reason. So if we, while we are saying Buddhan Saranam Gacchami, but to keep in mind, Buddha is the refuge for me to get rid of this samsara. Dhamman Saranam Gacchami, Nibbana, path fruition, and the teachings are the guidance or are the states that I need to attain, the things that I need to develop within myself to get rid of samsara. And also Sangha are the are the group of disciples whom I should follow in order to get rid of samsara. So if you have this attitude, then it is considered as a skill taking refuge correctly.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have a follow-up question from Hari Naidu. Banteji, the thought process happening in the mind is due to the presence of necessary conditions. When we come out of the sensory world created by the mind, when we have an experience of the reality. Am I right, Banteji?
I think its question comes from the previous answer, I think, right?
Yes, yes. So I
Follow.
think it's not really a question. Okay. So we have some questions in the Zoom. I think
Is
it's
it okay, but I just give one short answer to this? Yeah.
yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So Naidu, thank you for your follow-up question. The thought process happening in the mind is due to the presence of necessary conditions. Yes, that's true. So when we come out of the sensory world created by the mind, then we have experience of reality. Am I right? No, it's like this. Conditioned realities causes some other conditions causes realities to happen. Realities do exist. Being caused by conditions doesn't negate its realityness. Reality is caused by other than the nirvana, every reality is caused by conditions. So if it doesn't mean that if some reality can be reduced into conditions, it doesn't mean that if a reality arises due to conditions, it doesn't exist. Being able to reduce into conditions is not a reason for something not to be existing. Therefore, the experience that we get, the mind is existing, the sensory objects that we are observing are existing according to Theravada tradition. Even these sensory objects are ultimate realities, but we interpret it as selves, people, and so forth in a conceptual level. So therefore, it's not necessary that we come out of this experience to in order to see the reality. While we are experiencing light, color, sounds, taste, smells, and all, if we consider them as the realities in their actual nature without considering them as people, self, and so forth, then we are in the reality. So, in order to get into reality, what we have to think, we have to do is change our attitude, way of thinking, way we look into the world. Then we'll be able to touch the reality. Yeah, yeah, that will be the answer.
Okay, I think as Anjali asked the other question, how important it is to take refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha in the right manner. When we say Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, and again we do it second time as well. I go to the Buddha as my refuge. I go to the Dhamma as my refuge. I go to the Sangha as my refuge. It is very important that we have the confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Then we can follow whatever we do, we are the Dhamma that we practice. And then we go to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha second time and the third time. Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. For the second time also, I go to the Buddha as my refuge. For the second time also, I go to the Dhamma as my refuge. And for the second time also, I go to the Dhamma Sangha as my refuge. And then Tatyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Tatyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Tatyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. For the third time also, I go to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as my refuge. How important it is to say it three times. Venerable Maggavihari, would you like to show some light on this?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Bhante and Anjali. And yeah, it's another important thing. But if we take once, your refuge is complete actually. Even by taking once, your refuge is complete. But normally we do it as our Mahatera has taught us, Venerable Aridhamma Mahatera. We normally do it all. It's a nature that we do it three times. When we utter Namo Tassa, we do it three times. Whenever we do as monks, I think Bhante knows, when we do the Aditthana of Achivara, we do it three times. When we do the Kapyang, we do it three times. So normally it has been a tradition that we, in Indian tradition, that we do it 3 times. So then it's re-emphasized again and again. So in the ultimates, but when we are talking about being a monk, samanera ordination, the protocol is you have to say 3 times. There is no way that you can reduce it any further. But while we are talking about becoming a Buddhist by going refuge under the Buddha Dhamma and Sangha, if you do it once, still you are a Buddhist. Even you don't utter it, but you observe it with your mind, still you become a Buddhist. But uttering it 3 times doesn't do any harm to you. It's only good for you. And that has been the custom, and that has been the following way. So the significance is you are repeating it for 3 times, you are convincing yourself for 3 times. The merit is very high, and you do it like it's very solid. Then it's very solid that you are just doing it knowingly, and there is no way that you are not doing it out of any ignorance or anything. So therefore, in the ultimate sense, it's just observing once, you are becoming a Buddhist. And then what is the use of uttering it in words? Just by telling it in mind, yes, just by telling it in mind or considering it with mind, you can become a Buddhist. But when you utter it, you are putting more effort. You can even hear your voice with your by your ears. So lots of mind movements are involved in this, and therefore it's better always to utter in words, and also with your claps hands to do this always whenever we get. But it is not necessary, but it's better. And also just want to emphasize one more point. I have been in Myanmar for 8 years. I studied in Myanmar for 8 years. So in Myanmar, whenever they take the refuge, they utter it very loudly. They are very proud of themselves. But unfortunately, when I'm in Sri Lanka, it's very difficult to hear when they say Namo Tasso, whenever they say the Buddhan Saranam, Dhamman Saranam Gacchami. I don't know what is the reason. Even while I was lay, I also hesitant to say it loudly. But in Myanmar and Thailand, we feel like how proud they are to utter this loudly and say to the world. It's something that you should be proud of, that what is your refuge. And more you utter loudly, the strength of the chitta is stronger. So kusala is also in one sense getting stronger. And also it's very nice to hear while a huge audience is saying this. And I was really surprised to see how proud they are in uttering their refuge. So I also I don't normally say this, but I would prefer if people can say it loudly when we are giving precepts. Yeah. Bhante can add something on this.
Yeah, I think you should be confident of yourself, right? When you read that, so it's very important you read it with your palms together, close to your heart, with so much respect and so much saddha. Saddha is a very powerful thing. Without saddha, we can't go along this path. It's one of the first steps that we need to have, saddha. Saddha in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and confidence in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. The teachings of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha can make us so comfortable in our spiritual journey. I think maybe sometimes why we say it 3 times, because sometimes you make a mistake or you want to reiterate, you want to make sure that you are doing it. And when you do it several times, in Buddhism we have many things like 3 times, 7 times, 21 times, 108 times. These are some of those numerology that we have in Buddhism. So triple gem, it's very important to practice and have faith in confidence in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And when you say Namo Tassa Buddhan Sarana, please say out loud, at least from now onwards. If you haven't said that before, be confident. You are a Buddhist, you are following the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, so just say it out loud. That will make you will hear yourself. Maybe you will have a sweet voice. You will hear yourself. And with the Buddha Dhamma Sangha in mind, when you say that, it will be a blessing to you, especially when you, like in our monastery here, Empty Cloud Buddhist Monastery. Every morning when we say Buddhan Dhamma, Buddhan Saranam Gacchami, we also say the meaning. I think that also sometimes can be more helpful. All the suttas that we chant, we also say the meaning in English. So everyone in the audience, they follow. Sometimes in the Pali, it's very important that we keep the practice of Pali chanting. But maybe for people, lay people, it will be very helpful for them to also read the meaning in your own language, whether it is in English or Hindi or Sinhala or Myanmar, Thai, Cambodian, Lao, whatever. So you can also read the meaning in English or your language. That will become more closer to your heart. Okay, thank you, Venerable. And I think we have a question here from Sangamita Chavan. In Jataka tales, Bodhisattva born as animals, as lion, peacock, etc. My question, animal born as Tirachana, then why Bodhisattva born as animals? They are doing Kusala Kamma. I think the question maybe maybe put it in a nutshell. She's trying to ask why the bodhisattvas are born in Tirachana world, animal realm, because it is supposedly be a lower realm.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Sangamitra Chavan. Yeah, it's also something that we need to consider. That's the danger of samsara. Because Bodhisattva being such a great human, such a great being who could sacrifice everything selflessly to others, how could such a person would end up in an animal realm in certain periods or some time? That is because being a Putujana, even he has developed all these wholesome qualities, he's prone to do all the bad stuff. Except after he get the proclamation, he would not do the 5 heinous deeds. Other than that, he's capable of stealing, killing, sexual misconduct, taking alcohol, doing all the stuff, except lying on great levels. Like it says that he would never lie in the courts. He would never lie bringing such great harm to others. He may lie in a shallow level, but not in a mass scale, to completely mislead a country or to bring injustice to someone through lying and so forth. So other than that, other than the 5 heinous deeds and other than these great lies, it's possible that he may do certain acts. The reason is the strength of the defilements. So even the Bodhisattva's mind stream can be taken away to the unwholesome tide. So defilements are so strong. Therefore, time to time, eventually, they would also end up in animal realms. Then the thing is, so there's nothing to say about us. So normally, what I personally think is, if we are getting ready to wander in the samsara, be ready to end up in the animal realm sometime, because we cannot have guarantees. We want a guarantee, but we need to get a sotapanaship. So therefore, the next question that comes is, being an animal, does he do kusala kamma? Yeah, in some occasions. We cannot guarantee that even a bodhisattva would do wholesome deeds being an animal, because his mind is also quite low at that time, because being born in the animal realm is a ahetuka patisandhi. So there are limitations that he also has, being a bodhisattva. But I think in the natural world, we can see now certain animals do manifest certain extraordinary qualities. There are certain videos that animals are saving other animals, they're supporting the humans. So sometimes we see they do share their food with others sometimes. So we do see some extraordinary qualities of animals sometimes. So likewise, the possibility of kusala is still there. It's quite difficult for them to have a kusala consciousness, but possibility is there. So bodhisattva, having practiced wholesomeness for a long period of time with such great effort and endure, endurance. So it's possible that being an animal also, he may do some wholesome deeds. And it is obvious in Jatakas. This Buddha says that he did such good deeds being an animal. Therefore, it's possible that he, being an animal, because of his great potency, that he would end up doing good deeds. But not in all the lives. Now, it doesn't mean that being a lion, Bodhisattva would not kill. No, surely he would kill and eat the animals. But still, at the same time, in some occasions, he may manifest some special qualities than other animals. So why he end up in animal realm? That is because of defilements. So even the Bodhisattva does unwholesome deeds. So eventually he may end up in woeful realms. Even he has ended up in Niraya. If you look in the Temiya Jataka, the previous life, he came from a hell, not a great hell, a minor hell. Doing the kingship for 20 years. He suffered for, I think, 80,000 years or something like that. Therefore, that's the nature of samsara, nature of the defilements. And in being an animal, due to his great potency, habitual impact of his kusala, he may manifest some extraordinary qualities as an animal as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, so be prepared. Like there are no guarantee to be born in an animal realm or lower realm when we are, as long as we stay putujana, right? As we are anarya, so mundane persons, we can always we have that danger of being born there in the lower realm. So the only guarantee is to be sotapanna. That will guarantee you not to be born in any lower realm. So think of this danger of being born again and again and again. The more you are born there, the more unsafe your life there in animal realm. It's not really safe. Every time even a lion, he would be in danger of being attacked by other animals. Even elephant, although he is a big animal, he can be attacked by other animals, pack of lions maybe. So there are always danger of being somewhat. We are safe in the human realm, but still not. You can see what's happening in Ukraine. No matter how powerful you are, very rich, maybe very educated, still not safe, and maybe somewhat safe in Deva realm and Brahma realm, but still they can be again reborn in this lower realm. It can happen too. So only guarantee is to be born in a Sugati or better realm is to be Sotapanna. I think this we need to remember as well. Okay, I think we have another question. I would like to go to this one by Anthony Tucker Valdez. How do I practice Devatanusati?
Yes, Bhante. Thank you very much, Anthony, for your question. Yeah, it's Devatanusati is one of the meditations that is being ignored by most of us. Devatanusati is, according to the sutra, where the Buddha mentions about this in one sutra, a noble disciple, it can be done by worldlings as well, compare himself with the Devas. The thing is, why one becomes a Deva? It's due to practicing 5 wholesome qualities. Saddha, the faith on, it can be faith on triple gem or faith on the Kamma Vipaka, because not only Buddhists would go into heaven. So due to faith, like believing or knowing the Kamma and its results, knowing there is a rebirth and so forth, this sort of Saddha, faith. Saddha, Sutha, the learnedness, knowing what is good and bad at least in the level, shallow level. Being a Buddhist, knowing the doctrine very clearly, at least knowing what is good and bad. Sutta, Saddha, Sutta. Chaga, our ability to give dana, to generosity. Saddha, Sutta, Chaga. Sila, our good conduct, and panya, understanding what is good and bad. So only developing these type of qualities, one would become a deva. So we can guarantee that if someone is a deva, he has practiced such qualities in past lives. And also naturally they do possess these qualities. There can be some devas who turn evil being a deva, like the Mara and so forth, but still they do possess good qualities. Therefore, devas are beings who have attained a higher state, practicing wholesome qualities, and also naturally they tend to like these wholesome qualities. Most of them do possess these wholesome qualities. Then we have to compare ourselves. Do I possess these qualities? Do I have faith on karma vipaka and all these? Do I have enough learnedness about the existence, about what is good and bad? Do I have a good conduct? Do I maintain a good conduct? Am I generous enough? Do I have the wisdom to understand what is good and bad? If you have following a good doctrine, this wisdom can extend till the understanding of nama rupa and so forth to a higher level, even sila to the level of a monk or one who observes deep silas and so forth. So it depends. Now in the lowest level, at least believing karma and vipaka, having a basic knowledge about what is good and bad, having a proper conduct, being generous, and also knowing what is good and bad in the lowest level. This can be extended based on your capacity. So seeing your own qualities. Now, according to the doctrine, we know devas has such qualities and one becomes a deva due to such qualities. So knowing that they have these qualities and so do I. So do I. So I also possess the qualities of deva. So comparing this. It's not for the comparison for to get conceit to have mana. It's just comparing that I also possess the qualities that are required to be a deva. I also possess the qualities that are with devas. So when you keep on contemplating, we get the confidence within ourselves. We start to believe in ourselves. It's very important. Sometimes we don't believe in ourselves. Sometimes we have lack of confidence about ourselves. Another meditation that can bring up our confidence is sila anusati, contemplating your own conduct, your own sila, your proper conduct. That would make us more confident and also some sort of innocent pride within ourselves. Devatanusati is not only focused on sila, all the good qualities compared with deva. So then a great bliss would arise in us. Oh, I also possess these good qualities required to be a deva and what the devas possessed in past lives. So it means most probably I would end up in such a good destination. With all these understandings, great happiness starts to arise within us. So that's how we normally do Devatanusati according to the Theravada teachings.
I think that's a very good question. Yes, and also many people they seek refuge of the devas by asking many help from the devas. Like if you want to get your examination results better, or you want to get a better job, or you want to get protection from so you expect so many things sometimes from the devas. Maybe you have actually forgotten the fact that Devatanusati is something much different. That is to inculcate those qualities of the Devas within yourself so that you yourself can become a Deva. Yeah. Yeah, that's a thank you, Anthony, for the question. I think we have a little bit out of, but I think we can help Sayala in the money. May I know the Pali term of the effect of karma? I think it is karma vipaka, right? Mulatika that explains the effect of karma, the explanation of Lady Sayadaw. Venerable Maggavihari.
I think I'm unable to. I think I know what Sally is asking because this was some sort of explanation that I gave in a different discourse. I'll just give you a short answer. May I know the Pali term of effect of karma? It is for the kusala karmas is anisansa. Anisansa. ANISA.M.
I can type.
Yeah, okay, but anisansa. And for the akusalas, it's adinava. Adinava. I will share with you the Mulatika reference. I need to go into my thesis and find the reference for that. I'll share it with you in a Viber or WhatsApp platform. And then explanation on Lady Sayadaw is in the Manual of Buddhism. It's in the Manual of Buddhism. I don't have the book at the moment, but if you look into, there is explanation about karma, something like that in the book. You'll be able to download this in the internet, Manual of Buddhism, and there's a separate chapter for this. He explains very clearly what I'm referring here.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. I think Lady Sayadaw's book, Manual of Buddhism, is a good one you can read. There's another book, Manual of Buddhism by Venerable Narada also.
Yes, Manual.
Right. Okay, Harinai, this question is short. Maybe we can also help him a little bit. Banteji, please let me know whether a soul exists.
Okay. Yeah, according to Buddhism, no. According to Buddhism, no. I'm a bit reluctant to share my own experience, but I would explain it how do we understand whether there's a soul or not? It's a different topic. I prefer to give a different Dhamma talk on this because it's not something that can be explained in short terms. In short terms, according to Buddhism, there is no soul. Then the question comes, what is a soul? What is self? What sort of self Buddhism denies? Buddhism doesn't deny the choice, because we have the choice to do what, or good or bad. If it's not determined, everything is not determined in Buddhism. If it is determined, there's nothing to do, right? So there is choice. So what sort of a self the Buddha has negated? Self or soul is something that exists throughout the life or from life to life as a certain core, unchanging core. Then one can ask the question, yeah, we all know that everything is changing, even our lives are changing. Yes, our bodies do change, our minds do change, but have you ever thought that there were we have never thought that there were two I's, capital I, in one life. There's always one capital I, right? We never think that there are two I's. Even looking into a past photo of ours, we'd never say this was a different person. This was the same I, because I remember the experience that we have. There's a one sort of a unity of this experience. So according to Buddhism, there are different experiences which we had, and different rupas we had. Taking this generation as one, we consider as oneself, even though we accept the fact that changes have happened. But in our mind, we want to accept the one fact that there was sort of a one identity throughout this entire life. So that's what I meant as a core. This core has not changed. If that core has changed, we would think like a different I existed, different person existed throughout the entire time. No, that's not how we feel. It's an emotional thing. We feel as there was only one person throughout this entire life. That idea of one person is the core, self, soul. But in the ultimate sense, when you investigate in Vipassana meditation, we find out that there is no such a reality that can be given this name, that can be explained as a soul that lasted throughout this life. Sometimes we may use the words atta, jiva, atman in Sanskrit, soul or self, I, whatever it is. Therefore, how do we get into this understanding? It's a different topic. It's a different explanation we need to have, and we can look into this to get rid of the idea of self according to Buddhist teachings. We have to look into the intrinsic nature of the realities, the conditioned nature of the realities, the duality of the existence, and also the impermanent nature, uncontrollable in the sense that they would pass away eventually. And the nature of begetting or causing suffering. So when we look into this topic in our existence in various ways, we get to know that a self cannot exist. What sort of a self? A self that would last throughout this entire life without changing, as we think in our lives. We all think that I have been existing. That is an illusion. That is the illusion. That's what we get rid of by breaking the santati gana. And also we think, looking into a mirror, one person is existing, but if you analyze this, we cannot say hair is self, we cannot say skin is self, because otherwise when you cut your hair, I have to fall down. It doesn't happen like that. We cannot say nail is ourself. We cannot even tell the heart is ourself, and not even the brain is ourself. So therefore, getting all these together, we create in our minds sort of one idea. Even the consciousness, the dualist point of view, the materialists would not agree with me on this. But in the consciousness, we know that it rises and passes away. We have various different experiences at different times. If we happen to say, now think, if I term, while I'm angry, if I term myself as my angry mind, I will be a very fierce person, a very bad guy. While I'm happy, if I name this mind as I will be a joyful person. If I term the lazy mind as I will be a very lethargic, lazy person. But we don't want to label ourselves with such a one emotion. We are humans, like sometimes who get angry, sometimes get happier, take good decisions, sometimes take like dull decisions, make some mistakes. So this is the I that we want to accept. So what is this? So different consciousnesses have occurred in different times. Collectively taking them, we consider them as I. There was no such some kind of core essence going through this. So this idea can be removed only with vipassana meditation, when we see the rising and falling and also the true natures of the reality. Yeah, according to Buddhism, there is no self. But there was one Buddhist school that I would also like to emphasize. There was one Buddhist school that, because entire Buddhism is non-self, but there was one Buddhist school who were known as Sankrantikavadins, had an idea. There is no self, but there is some sort of an element called Puggala that would transmigrate from life to life. They didn't term it as self, but when you observe their doctrine, most of the scholars consider they are inclined towards the self view, and the ancient Buddhist masters labeled them as a non-Buddhist school because they were inclining towards the idea of self. The idea of self is completely opposing to the Upanishad and some doctrines different from Buddhism. This is a place where Buddhism is highlighted as a concept doctrine. And also to conclude, there was another teacher who was called Pakuda Kachayana, who emphasized a similar sort of a doctrine. He said it's only 7 elements together: Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo, Sukha, Dukkha, and Jiva. Jiva is some sort of a life, right? So that life would exist throughout this. So that is the thing that gives us the energy, the living force. So he said, if someone is killed by someone else, there is no one who kills. There was no one who get killed. When you enter a sword into the body, is the 4 great elements entering into the 4 great elements. It's very similar to Buddhism. Some may think. The difference is, he said, So at the death, these elements would end up, Patavi would go mix with the earth, Apo would mix with water, Tejo would mix with fire, Vayu would mix with air, then Sukha Dukkha Jiva would end up in the space. So there is no kind of a rebirth. But Buddhism is different here. It is not talking about the doctrine of annihilism. It's the Nama Rupa process is happening as long as the latent craving, latent ignorance, and the karma force is there. When we die, a new consciousness would happen, and the generation would continue due to the previous causes. So therefore, Buddhism is different in that sense. So it's a very deep, profound thing. How do we explain the rebirth without consciousness, without self? How do we explain the karma affecting without the self? These are very profound doctrines. Which we will take upon in future.
Okay, I think that is already night time there in Sri Lanka, right? So almost 2 hours we have been sharing the Dhamma with you, and thank you, Venerable Maggavihari, for your dedication and helping the community with so many ways. I would like to invoke blessings upon all of you, especially Venerable Maggavihari, for your wonderful commitment and sharing this Dhamma talk. And I would like to invite all of you to join us again next week at the same time. We will share more Dhamma topics like this: no soul, and Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, and Kamma, and Four Noble Truths, and more in the coming weeks. So with that, we would like to conclude today. Let us keep our palms together, close to our hearts, and pay respect to Venerable Maggavihari with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you always be well, happy, healthy, dear Venerable. Let us also keep our palms together close to our heart and pray that by the power of this, all the Dana Sila Bhavana activities that we all have performed during our lifetime and during our whole course of samsara, may they all become one united power, and may it be shared with all the celestial beings. May all the wonderful celestial beings, including respectful Brahmas and Devas, and all the other sentient beings receive this merit, share this merit, be well, happy, healthy, safe wherever they are. May all your departed ones, including the late Acharya Upadhyayas of all of us, all the Mahasangha members, and also parents and other ancestors, may they all also, all the departed ones, also receive this merit, share this merit, be well, happy, healthy, safe wherever they are. May all of you and all your near and dear ones, family members, friends and relatives, teachers and elders, everyone in your community, everyone in your country, and everyone in the world, may they all be blessed by the Noble Triple Gem. May all of us and all of them be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Thinking thus, please keep your palms together close to your heart and say 3 times, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu. Now we would like to invoke blessings upon all of you with a short chanting. Sabbithiyo vivajjantu sabbarogo vinassato mate bhavattvantarayo sukhi digayuko bhava. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sada sothi bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanubhavena sada sothi bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata Sabba Sanghanubhavena Sada Sotti Bhavantu Te. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Please check in with IIT, International Institute of Theravada Buddhist channel, and also the website for more updates of Venerable Maggavihari's Dhamma Sharings. And he's sharing so many Dhamma talks in different venues. So we would like to invite all of you to learn more from Venerable. And thank you again. See you again next week. Thiruvān Saranai.